and welcome to Tuesday Talks. I'm Seema Kumar, CEO of Cure. Today, we will dive deep into how to build the right team. Who should you tap into for your board of advisors? How else can you partner with others to maximize your chances of success? Our guest today is Dr. Shalabh Gupta. Shalabh is a passionate biotech entrepreneur and CEO who believes his company's secret power is his team. He leads Unicisive Therapeutics, a biotechnology company developing novel treatments for kidney diseases. Welcome to Tuesday Talks, Shalabh.
Thank you.
And welcome to Cure.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So, before we dive in, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a background question. Tell us about your background. Where did you start? How did you get into biology, biotherapeutics?
Nearly 2 decades ago, I was doing my medical training. I'm trained as a physician. I was doing my residency training right here in the neighborhood of Cure, a few blocks north at NYU Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
During second year of my training, I realized what I had envisioned of being a physician was very different what I would be doing as a physician, as a practicing physician. Yet there was nothing else that I had ever done in my life. So the medicine was one thing I knew how to do, and that was what being trained in. I spent some time thinking about what is that I like about medicine and where can I go from here to the next part. The two driving forces for me to join medicine was, one was I was very fascinated or interested from very early on in biological sciences. And two, I wanted to be part of something that will help people, patients. So if you're not going to be a physician, the next best thing you can do is to find a way to bring new innovation technologies to the market. And over the course of last 2 decades, after practicing medicine, I have a finance degree as well. I went to work with a biotechnology company. I was the first medical director to go to the FDA. So I had an opportunity to not just see from the outside, but actually go to the FDA back in the days when you go to FDA physically.
Yes.
And have the discussion with FDA staff, which I found very, very collaborative and helpful in those days. And today, they were able to give us guidance in terms of how do you think about the drug to advance to the next stage. That led me to my career in equity research on Wall Street. I covered biotech stocks, then I covered pharma stocks, and moved to California, worked for Genentech. And it was at Genentech that I realized that what I really could do, would do, want to do is to start a company, and that led me to entrepreneurial journey.
That's very fascinating. So it's almost like your journey took you on the different points of the path
Right.
and things that you need to know actually as a company founder and CEO. So you founded a company that's focused on kidney disease. It's called Unicisive, and what you do there is use a novel approach of drug formulation and delivery. How is your approach different and more effective than what's currently on the market for kidney disease?
I think any solution you think about, at the end of the day, it has to make an impact in patient's life. Therefore, I think about who are the end user. And in our system, in healthcare system, it's a little bit more complex because patients on one hand need the drug, but they're not the one who are making the decision of taking the drug. So you have a patient, you have a physician, and the third part is the payers. So who are, you can call them, I'm just putting a large bucket of payers. So in my mind, the idea was that understand patient's problem, find a way that you can solve the problem, and physicians find it attractive to prescribe your medicine. And the last part is the payer, so the healthcare system supports it. And it is not, it's not something that you can just find it on Google. You go do research or you talk to 5 people, you find this out. After talking to a number of physicians, I wanted to build a company in nephrology because in nephrology, I felt the standard of care has not changed that much in the last few decades. I'm not a nephrologist, so I had a perspective of being quite curious.
Mm-hmm.
And the curiosity helped me to talk to a number of nephrologists, my friends, colleagues, and then going to nephrologists all over the country. And one thing came along that pill burden it becomes the number one problem for patients who are on dialysis.
How many pills do they have to take, like when they're on dialysis?
to give you a perspective, these
Mhm.
patients are taking 20 to 30 pills a day,
Ooh.
and they are taking these number of pills for the rest of their life. I always tell someone that it doesn't matter who you are. Most of us, I don't mean all, but most of us will not be able to take 30 pills a day for more than a week. So it's no wonder that patients uh, forget or they don't want to take pills and they skip these
Yeah,
medications.
the compliance becomes a big issue. Yes.
So this to solve that problem, of the 30 pills or 20 pills they're taking per day, half of them roughly half of them come from treatment of high phosphate or hyperphosphatemia. So if we can solve the pill burden problem, we can solve the problem. And our technology is based on nanoparticle technology, which was being developed at a car battery company. They decided or they wanted to shrink the size of the pills. That was not their original intention, but they were able to use nanoparticle technology that allowed larger sized pills to become smaller, yet deliver the same potency. There was another company, a biopharma company called Spectrum. They had licensed the drug or acquired the technology from them, and they were doing the clinical development. Spectrum ran phase 1 clinical trial. Because of a strategic reason, they decided to focus more on oncology pipeline. In 2018, I was able to acquire the drug outright as a part of a what people call asset purchase agreement,
Mhm.
and that became the foundation. But all of this came with the idea, what is the unmet need? And unmet need here is that you don't necessarily need a new treatment, though new treatments are welcome, but you have to be able to solve whatever the way you get to that to reduce the number of pills. And we have a potential drug that can solve that problem by giving 3 pills instead of taking 12 to 15 pills per day. And these pills, you take 1 pill, which is the size of a baby aspirin. That's the starting dose with each meal that you can swallow. I can
That's
talk more about that problem.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal because, so two things strike me when as I listen to you. One is that it just reminds me of the early days of HIV, where pill burden was such a big issue. And now we have 1 pill once a day.
Correct.
Not only that, we have long actings where you can just take an injection and sort of keep the virus under control. Second thing that occurs to me is that it seems like on the one hand, you could go the other direction. You find a novel mechanism of action,
Right.
and then you try to figure out what can I apply this to, which disease can I apply it to.
Right.
This is the other way of doing things, which actually seems to be a way that we're going more and more now. What is the unmet medical need?
Right.
And then work backwards to find something that will solve that unmet medical need, right? Now, you founded the company Unicisive in 2016, and I heard that you wanted to assemble, an entire team, and you shared a mission-focused approach, to creating these innovative solutions. And how did you use that as a way to hire people? Who was your first hire, and why did you hire this person?
I felt very inspired. Still today, I talk to my team very openly about this. I found that the culture that Genentech had was a culture where you go to work, but you feel that whatever you do with your 8, 10, 12, whatever number of hours you work at work or at home, it is not a way to just do the job, but actually you were part of something that was helping the world. And that culture was obviously driven by then the CEO, Art Levinson, who was there, and he led and he was leaving. And I joined Genentech when Art was about to transition out as a CEO role. That was very refreshing. And Genentech at the time was not a small company anymore. Genentech then got acquired by Roche and became even larger, but we are talking about thousands of people. And it would be one thing if people who reported directly to Art Levinson, the CEO at that time, felt that passion, but I'm talking about even the rank and file, people who are much further away from the CEO felt that what they did mattered. And that is something I want to bring it to Unicisive. I wanted to bring to Unicisive. So initially we had a small team. We took the company public with a N of one as an employee, but I had assembled team and told the investors that upon financing, we'll hire a few more people. And from very beginning, it was a very conscious decision who fits into the culture. You can only, as a CEO, I can only do, which is this much, meaning you hire few good people. And building a company and building a team is not easy. So I started focusing on the who are the people who have right subject matter expertise, but we call it not having a chip on your shoulder, but they can also collaborate with people. Because in a small company, if you can't collaborate and if you are very used to having a lot of resources, not just talking about money, but initially you have to do a lot of things by yourself because you are building the team, building the company, and you have to figure out many things that don't exist in the company. So few good people that we hired in the beginning that helped to then foster a culture. And I heard from we are at the moment still not that big. We are 17 full-time employees. And what I found that slowly after 10 people, when we had in our team, the 11th person came along and the team started talking, oh, that so-and-so will not fit into our culture. So we don't want to hire the world's brightest people who are, we call lone warrior, or, they can only work alone because in a smaller team, it's not functional.
That's so interesting because I too have had the privilege of working in my past for many companies and academic institutions and others that have had that same sort of mission-driven thing where anybody and everybody in a large company or a small team would feel that same sense of purpose and
Right.
mission-driven thing. And the other thing that you mentioned, which I think is critical and bears repeating, is we don't want the lone warrior kind of syndrome. We want collaborative people to work with each other. And no one single person, whether it's a CEO or somebody else, can do it all alone or has all the answers. So the more diverse your team is, but the more they can collaborate and make up for each other's gaps, the better you are as a team. And I think that's excellent. Now, at this point in time, by the time you had 10 employees, right? Had you already assembled a board?
Yes, as a public company, you have to have an independent board. We trade on NASDAQ, so there are minimum requirement of the board. But when we were thinking of putting the board members together, also at the moment we have, besides me, there are two other physicians. But even those who are physicians, we were looking for people with more diverse skill set, diversity in their experiences, educational background. And as you pointed out, a company is made up of people. And the thing that ties them together is a mission to bring a new product to the market or whatever that mission of the organization is. But then if everybody has a similar type of a skill, you don't necessarily benefit. I think not always, but many times founders tend to hire people who are more like them.
Themselves, yes.
Yeah. So from very beginning, we were just very careful. Every person we went to add to the team or the board. A recent person who joined our board is Dr. Sarah Mitra. So I've known her for some time, but she brings in early stage drug development. She led Genentech's R&D program for several decades. That is a skill set I don't have. I understand how drugs can be developed, but my expertise comes much later on. So I knew very deep down that having somebody at that expertise will be a very useful help to guide us when we do drug development. So that's how we were able to have her. I can go on about each and every person. As of course, as the company grows bigger, you need more people who are not only just at the senior role, but also in more junior or mid-level role. We're filling that in. But that again, the focus is that folks who can work cross-functional team and also can influence cross-functional team, because sometimes they're working in a clinical operations, but what they do helps the regulatory team and vice versa. Regulatory team we couldn't have filed our NDA until we got the clinical operations team to close the clinical trial, and then somebody in medical writing to write the whole NDA. So this is a big work, a big project. And if people can rely on each other, I always remind the team, I'm the least important person. The most important person is look out for each other. Don't worry about me. If you do what you are supposed to do, we'll be doing well. And the idea is that I am not the most important person. The most important thing is they learn to take care of each other and rely on each other and respect each other. Right?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, this is just incredible. I think this building the team, building the culture, hiring the right type of people who are different from each other, but all have one thing in common, which is their ability to collaborate
Yeah.
and rely on each other. Because, as we said, no one person brings
Okay.
all the answers, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things, speaking, going back to the board, what are the risks and challenges that a company may face with the wrong board or the wrong team?
So we are a small board, so I can't talk more about that because we have it's not like a huge board, and
Yep.
I'm fortunate to have people who share vision,
Mm-hmm.
who are both mentors and guide, as well as understand the responsibilities that come of being in a board of a public company. Regarding team, I think the challenge, as somebody described to me, which I'll give you in a way to understand numerically, if one person in a team of 20 people is dysfunctional, let's just say they are smart, good, but they just can't get along with other people, or the way they operate, nobody really wants to work with them, that's 1 out of 20, that's 5%. And if you can keep adding this, 2 out of 20 is 10% of your workforce is dysfunctional. That, you see,
It's a
it's a
huge
huge
problem.
magnification of a problem.
Yeah.
So when we were 10, if there was one person who, fortunately, we didn't have that problem, and over time we were able to be more thoughtful and conscious of this. But I don't mean that the larger organization should tolerate not a well-fitting team, but there you have an ability, the impact is far lower.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a one out of a team of 100, that's only 1%. And I'm giving you a numerical example because truly in a smaller team, everything gets magnified.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is a person or personality that people don't want to talk, and that means that part, that 5% now is getting magnified. And it takes effort. So even though we hire good people, my job is constantly to make sure that if they need help, I am there to help them. I am an enabler. I'm not, in my mind, the leadership is to just help them with whatever immediate problems are. And sometimes that may mean to do the things that you can do. I may not be subject matter expert in manufacturing. If my manufacturing team needs a collaboration with somebody else outside, I'm an enabler because I can go and talk to their senior leadership team in a more different way than the team can talk.
Yeah.
So my job is constantly to make sure that our organization continues to work smoothly towards a common goal.
Yeah, and I think the point about in a company of 10, one dysfunctional employee or disengaged employee, not only is that 5% dysfunction, but there is also this notion of wasted time and
Yes.
effort
Yeah. Yes.
and cost.
Yes.
Nobody can put up nobody understands it, but because nobody wants to work with them, there is
That's right.
workarounds
Yes.
that can cause delays,
Yes.
that can cause additional time it takes to get something out, and all this stuff, right? And so, very interestingly, before you had all your employees, you as a one-man company took your company public, right? Which is fascinating. I mean, that's sort of gutsy, but also why? Why did you take that step? And how do you help others who might want to do that, in terms of going public, whether you're a one-person company or, a bigger company?
I'll answer your question. I
Mm-hmm.
want to just tell you one other thing that we have tried our best to do, and I don't think there are a lot of books out there, but as human being, I sincerely believe fear, monetary, uh, incentives only can go this far. I think we as a as a race, we are intrinsically motivated. So question is that how can you motivate your team? So they're not motivated because of an artificial deadline from CEO or investor, but you lift their consciousness and how can you get there where, and that I I I I think about this every day. Every weekend I'm thinking what else we can do. How can I make their job easy? So they look, we live in America. It's a society where we let people choose to do what they want to do. So you cannot give people enough money. You cannot incentivize people enough. If money is the only reason for them to come, I don't want them in my company. Then the part is that look beyond that. How can you make them motivated. And that comes out in my mind is it truly being candid, being open, vulnerable, and honest with them. We have challenges we share with them. And going back to that part about why we took the company public, Seema, it comes back to the basic question that you asked me, how did I start my career? I think investors becomes your partner. You want to have investors who will support you in longer run. I came from a Wall Street background. I thought that having a company on a public market comes with a number of challenges, um, which we all understand, but there is a macroeconomic trend. The stocks market is start go up and down. But the idea is that you can access a larger pool of investors by being a public company. But the goal was very simple in my mind. It was to find a way to advance the drug, build a team, and get the product on the market.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed from whenever I started my medicine career to today. So I feel that was just that part. And last part, you asked me, how do I tell other people? And I recently did a workshop / talk at Stanford, and I talked to the founders at Stanford who come with varied background, and they're some of the brightest people that I've met in Silicon Valley with not just life sciences background, but technology background, to show them and tell them, for lack of a better word, teach them that taking a company public is a complex process. However, you can break it down to smaller pieces. And if I showed you there are 5 parts of an IPO process, one can focus on one part of the process at a time. You don't have to worry about the entire journey. You focus on the one step at a time, taking a small step. And I say this to anyone, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It's not something, we are not sending man to the Mars. Really, it's not something that has not been done before. Is it hard? Sure.
But can you imagine a first-time founder or a scientist who wants to start a company, being intimidated by it? So what are the 5 steps?
3 parts of the company business never change, no matter you're private, public. The day you start a company, even in your mind, one is that what is your story? The story begins with the unmet need, product, and what's your competitive advantage? Why would you succeed? Because if you can't talk about competition, so unmet need, which I say is a part of your story. What's your story? Because people don't invest in a product. People don't invest in a patent. I mean, I know that is where technologies start. People invest as a human being. We invest in the stories, things that we can relate to, things we understand. And I'm talking about, doesn't matter. You can say invest. It doesn't have to be a patent, but it has to be something you are telling investors. Second part is why you're different or how will you succeed while others. And the third thing eventually comes out around team. If you don't have one, which one will you build? And I didn't have any in the beginning. So you could say, well, Shalabh, how did you do it? And Seema, it came down to very simple fact. If I got the first person in, that was a team. Then I fought one baby step. And I had to control not only just my own mindset, but I also had to control, which is a common fear, anxiety, unknowns. We all dread that. There is not a human being I've ever met who loves unknown, and just biologically, we are not designed to deal with the, unknowns. But how do you overcome that? By telling yourself, today I'll focus only one thing. And I've talked more about this with my team that we should focus on 3 priorities, not 10, not 20. If it's 20, it's way too many.
Yep.
So a small number of priorities, focus on few things that you know what to do. So you have your business plan. Then you think about if you're thinking about a public company and accounting, legal, finding the right bankers, collaborators, and investors, and then the whole process. And the idea was that if you have...
So your 5 steps are...
First, you have to have your business plan, which
Yes.
then becomes a
Yeah.
part of a business description in Form S1.
Yeah.
Accounting.
Mhm.
Many private companies have good accounting system, but not up to the standards that are required for public companies.
Yep.
And to remind them that you need 6 months prior to thinking about public listing. Third is your lawyers. You want to be working with lawyers who are, who have done the IPOs, who are aware of public company, and perhaps they are also familiar with your own industry. That comes down to auditors. There are specific requirements of public companies. There are independence auditors. So I said, if your name is Jane Smith, you cannot have Mark Smith, your brother, doing your audit. So
Yeah.
independent audit firms, which again is a specific guideline. PCAOB, which stands for Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. So that's auditors, then your bankers. These are five, not necessarily but a step, but these are the five things to think about. Then, of course, you do the rest of the process. You test the waters, TTW meetings where you go see what type of appetite is in the investors. And then finally, you go for listing. And this whole process is a complex process. But if you divide that, these are the five things I have to worry about. You can do sequentially, you can do concurrently. But if I break it down, and again, you're not having to be the person who is doing all accounting, but you need to have those partners, collaborators with you who help you with
Who
accounting.
help you with it? Wow, that's excellent. And of course, since going public, you've raised around 80 million, right? And expanded your team.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And what advice would you offer other founders who are scaling up after an IPO?
I think one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur is that you are living in a two different time zone. One is present, so you have to deal with the problem of the present or challenges of the present. Other is a problem with the future because you constantly think about where we would like to go, vision, purpose, mission, where you want to go, and work backward. So currently, we think about it not only growing our organization, but also we have filed our drug for approval. If approved next year, we will be growing and commercializing ourselves. That's a monumental task. So working backward, what do we need to do today? How do we continue to scale up the company, but also be the company that can launch the product so it can go to the most number of physicians and most number of patients who need this. So I think that is a constant struggle, if you will. But all of this becomes easy if you, again, go back to this, take one small step every day, and that helps you to both keep the momentum, keep the progress, which then helps you to overcome any other challenges you encounter.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've had just an amazing journey and you are an inspiration. And I think you have shared some great wisdom with us. And thank you for doing that. Any final words of encouragement, warning, advice, anything to entrepreneurs who are looking for tips on company leadership?
I think the one part that I could say to any entrepreneur or anybody, it's a lonely journey. Try to find people who are like you or mentors, and not one mentor, but many mentors, because we all need people to talk to, a support group. I am beneficiary of many, many mentors I've had over the last 2 decades who've helped me, inspired me, and reminded me that challenges and problems that I face are not unique to me. These are problems others have faced before me and have overcome. And that reminder, that having a support group, I will tell you, Cure, what I saw in last few hours, perhaps provides one such ecosystem. Having people, like-minded people around you, if you are running a company, you run across somebody else at a cafeteria or at a coffee place, you have a beautiful shared space. Those are the places where you find those support systems. It's not going to be sitting in front of your computer and writing a PowerPoint deck and assuming that you figured it all out.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today. And thank you for visiting us at Cure and for being here today.
Thank you, Seema.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next Tuesday.